Alright guys, so this video is just going to be a quick tutorial about how to create kind of like a half modal. What we're trying to create is this right here. So when I click this, I get that half and I can kind of slowly drag it away. See how that background is responsive and it understands if I'm committing or not. I can drop it down here and it continues, or I can even just flick really quick and it understands even if I don't make it to the entire threshold height. Okay, I can also click up here. So it's fully functional and you can add your own customizable content inside of here. So I can write whatever I want in here. It allows you to do that, okay? The same way you can add inside any view now. So I gotta give a big shout out to this right here. It looks like it's called Slide Over Card, and it's by this guy, M. Schaefer, or this guy, girl, whatever. This person, M. Schaefer. They created, and what they made was this. So you're welcome to try this out here. But I made this specifically to work like a modal. So I took kind of this baseline code, I took the really good parts, and made something that's pretty customizable, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start by creating a new app, create a new single view app, and we'll call this one half modal view. The big thing I want to tell you is that this half modal view that we're going to be creating here, I'm going to have a file that you can actually just drag and drop if you don't feel like going through and creating the entire project. At the very end of this, after creating the half modal view, I'll show you how to use the half modal view. And if you have only interest in using the half modal view, you'll have a drag and drop file that you can drag and drop into your project, and we can use that, and you can just kind of do the execution half of things rather than just creating the file yourself. Okay, so I'll have a link in the description. So half modal view. Go to desktop, new folder, half modal view tutorial. Which I'm going to change the name to code tutorial underscore half modal view. Okay. Create. And we're going to run through what I've already created for here, okay? We're going to run through all the different pieces of the code. So this is the entire code to create it, and executing it is even easier, okay? So there's one piece of this that I don't fully understand, to be honest with you. I don't really understand this drag state, okay? I do know how we use it, and the biggest thing is, we're checking whether this is active or not. And we use drag state essentially to monitor how far we've dragged. So this piece I would just copy and paste, or I would pause right here and make sure you have this. And what we'll do is this. So if this is our main view, or let's create a new, let's say command, and we'll say new SwiftUI view, or new SwiftUI view. Okay, we'll call this half modal view. Okay, and actually, I highly suggest that when you create new files, hierarchy seems to be important sometimes. So I suggest you literally right-click on something in the hierarchy level that you're interested in, and click the write new file there. Okay, so half modal view. Okay, now it's in this part of the hierarchy. So half modal view currently looks like this, which is not what we're looking for. It's just the text hello world. So first thing I want to do is, like I said, you're going to want to take this drag state right here, okay? You're going to want to recreate this. So in your half modal view, this new view, okay? I want you to drag and drop this in there, okay? Or I want you to, type it out. So you need the case inactive, all these different pieces. Make sure it looks identical, okay? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually create this drag view, okay? So let's look at it piece by piece. First thing we need is a gesture state. So that kind of helps us keep track of where we are in the gesture itself. So that helps us understand how far we dragged. So gesture state is a private variable, and it uses drag state in its inactive form. Okay. The next thing we need is whether or not this thing is shown. Okay, and we need it because it's going to be. That's what's going to allow us to click on the background and hide it, or even drag down and hide it, okay? That's the next thing. Now, to make this nice and really customizable, we'll put a variable, modal height, okay? And that'll let us modify the height of that modal later, okay? So the next thing is we need to put notice one thing really crucial up here. Drag view is not just some view, okay, like I have it listed as drag view. This is going to be half modal view, okay. Initially I put drag view, but it will be half modal. So half modal view, it's not just going to be of type view. We actually want it to be all of this. And this will allow us to put whatever content we want inside of it. So that's what it should say. So it should say half modal view, and then content view, and then view. Sorry, one big thing is these variables that I just created here, they need to be up here inside of this area, not in the previews. Crucial, not in the previews, okay? So I'm going to actually fold that up so we don't accidentally put things in there, okay? So honestly, you don't even need it. Let's just get rid of it. So here we have so far. We have half modal view. We've put these three variables inside, and we have drag state, which we copied identically, okay? So the next thing we're going to do is we need this var content and content, turns to content with a return of content. So I'm going to put that right above body, and that's what's going to allow us to put whatever content we want inside of this drag view, or this half modal. Forgive me if I go back and forth between the two names. They're the same thing. So next up, we need to actually define kind of what's inside of this drag view, okay, or half modal. So the first thing inside of here that we will need undoubtedly is going to be it's going to be a ZStack, okay. All right, and that ZStack inside of it is going to have, first thing is this spacer that we'll use as a background. So this right here is going to be the background. Okay. Spacer, we're going to edge it. We're going to use edges ignore, and we're going to do .all, and that's going to allow us to fill up the whole screen. Okay. And then the next thing we want is we want its frame to have to fill up the entire screen. So I'm going to drag all that. And so we use frame. Its width is equal to UI screen main bounds size width. That's how we get the exact size of the screen, no matter what device you're on. And then same thing for the height. Okay. And lastly, we need to give it a background color. And this is where it starts to get fun. Okay. So what we need to do, I'm going to copy this and we'll walk through it together so you can copy it word for word. Okay. So the background color, this right here is called a ternary operator. And a ternary operator allows us, let's define a new function in here, okay? So I didn't realize we used this function already. So this function here is called fraction of progress, okay? And the point of this function right here is we're setting kind of a lower limit, and this is a very reusable function. I would save this even for later. So we're saving a lower limit and an upper limit for anything really. So and where we are within these upper and lower limits. So for instance, let's pretend you can drag the half modal. You can drag it either starting from 0 or you can drag it all the way down. So if the modal is 400 units high, then you can drag it 400 units down. And you want to see how far you are into that drag. So what we can get is what fraction of the progress from 0 to 400 we have already finished using this function. So essentially what it says is if we currently are above the upper limit, like I'm dragging up and I don't want it to go up anymore, then just return 1, meaning don't do anything. And if I'm already past the lower limit, then return 0. And if we're somewhere in between the two, then tell me how far I am between the upper and lower limits of whatever I happen to be tracking. And in this case, I happen to be tracking the drag. So make sure you use this function 1 for 1, okay? This is crucial. You don't miss any piece of this function. As of now, we don't even need this canvas, okay? So make sure you get all of these right. Check all these parameters, okay? So that function, I'm going to just re-indent everything so if it looks cleaner, all right? So that function is what's going to allow us to track how far we are in the drag, okay? So now, what we're going to do is we're going to use what we were about to use up here, this background, okay? So let's talk about what each piece of this is. It would be a little tedious to sit here and write. You know, I took a lot of time to kind of work out the math and the ternary operator. So if you copy it, what we'll do is we'll talk through it, okay? So let's go ahead and just put them all on the same line. And what this is saying is if the background is shown, then we need to have a color of all of this. Okay? And that's it. So, and if it's not shown, sorry, here's the second half of the turner operator. I was trying to find the second half. There we go. There we go. That's all one line, okay? So if this whole half modal is shown, then we need to run through this entire string to figure out just how dark that background needs to be. So what I'm saying is, do you see how dark this is here? We need to determine how to create this fade. That's what we're trying to set right there. And it's based on the current progress, the fraction of the current progress, that function we just created. That's how far down I've gone determines how dark that is, okay? And it has an upper limit of 0.5 and a 0.5 opacity and a lower limit of 0. All right? And so if you were to copy this one for one, it's saying, we're using a Turner operator, it's saying, if shown, then the color, it's going to be black with an opacity of 0.5, but the fraction from 0 to 0.5 will be based on a lower limit of 0, an upper limit of having dragged the entire modal height. And lastly, it'll say our current position in this fraction progress is equal to the drag state, what we made up here, dot translation dot height. So this fraction progress is tracking how far we've gone from a lower limit of 0 to an upper limit of 400. Okay? This inverted equals true is just to say that instead of getting dark when I'm all the way down here, we're trying to make sure that it's dark here and light here. In its original form, this function would have given you dark here and light here. So we invert it just so it works properly, okay? So that's that part of the equation. And then we want to animate that, that color change, okay? So that's that next line. So we use animation. We're animating what is right before it. That's what this line does. This line of animation animates what is directly before it. So we're animation of type dot interpolating string with a stiffness of 300 and a damping of 30 and an initial velocity of 10. Okay, that's courtesy of the GitHub repository GitHub file that I had mentioned in the beginning. And lastly, we want to be able to hide this modal when I click on that. Okay, so that's that gesture. I didn't realize how easy it is to use gestures in here actually. So we're creating a new gesture. It's a tap gesture, and when the tap is ended, self dot is shown is going to be equal to false. Okay, we're going to re-indent everything so it looks nice, and that is precisely how we manage being able to. That line lets us click here and hide it. Okay, so I click here and I can just boom. That's what this gesture, this tap gesture is saying. When you're done tapping, hide it. So is shown becomes false. Okay. Next up, we have, let's go back to this right here. So now, this is a ZStack, right? And so above or on top of the ZStack, we need a VStack. And what you need to do is you need to think about this. If you ignore the black or the dark area now what we have is we have a view right here that's 400 pixels high. And then we have just a spacer occupying all this space up here. And one thing that's really important to know, and it changes how you write things, is you can actually click through a clear spacer, but you can't click through these colored ones, from my experience at least. So we put a ZStack, we put the background in, and the next thing we need is, we'll call it the foreground, essentially, right? So I'm going to come to foreground. And that foreground is going to be a VStack with a spacer. So far everything looks right, okay? VStack with a spacer, and then we're going to put a ZStack inside. ZStack, okay? And that ZStack is going to have, first, it's going to have this color. And so this is the point of the ZStack. What we're making right here is we're putting this white background behind whatever we choose to insert inside of this whole half modal, okay? So ZStack, put color dot white. Up here, it's an opacity of 1, okay? And we want to make sure its width is exactly the width of the screen, and its height should just be the height of the modal, okay? So I'll just copy it. Okay, so right here. And then we want to give it a corner radius of 10 and a shadow of 5. And you'll see exactly what that does. So dot corner radius of 10 dot shadow of 5. And that lets us corner radius shadow. Okay, it's exactly what you see here. And now what we want to do is we want to put our content that we choose to, the same way you put any content in any view, we want to put the content directly underneath that, or directly on top of that color. Okay, so we put self.content. Okay, and we gave the content some padding. And the biggest thing is that this content all goes down into the safe area, so we want to give it some padding to push all the content back up out of there. So we gave some general padding all around and some extra 65 pixels worth of padding on the bottom. And then we have we give it its width and its height, and we clip it. And by clipping it, we prevent things from kind of falling up on top or bottom of the screen of the modal. Okay, we save it, and now we'll go back over here. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add this offset. Okay, so this offset needs to go on the ZStack. And let's talk about this offset. So if you remember this ternary operator that we had up top, let's go up here. Make sure we missed something. Yeah, so first thing I'm going to do actually is I'm going to come here. I'm going to make sure that I have an instance. When we created body, we went right into creating everything, but we never created the drag gesture that's going to allow us to do that. Okay, so I need to create a drag gesture, and we need to also create right here. Yes, we need to create a drag gesture, and it needs to update drag state every time it changes. And on ended, it needs to execute a function we'll create called on ended, or on drag ended. Okay. So let drag equal drag gesture. That's nice and easy. We want it to update. Let's go. The biggest issue here, what it's not liking, is the fact that we don't have a function called on drag ended. So let's create that. So I'm gonna grab this. I'm gonna bring it over. Okay, and what is this function? So this function is saying on drag ended. What we want to do is we want, when the drag ends, if we have passed, what we're writing here is we're saying if we pass at least 2/3 of the height, then continue hiding. But anything short of that, don't. Unless you have predicted that I would have gone, that had I continued swiping and not released my finger, that the speed at which I was going would have brought me past 2/3. So if I go fast enough, it continues on anyway. So that's what this is saying. So it's saying let drag threshold equal modal height times 2/3. And we're saying if the predicted end translation is greater than the drag threshold, or where I left it to begin with was greater than, then is shown as false. So that's what this on drag ended is. Okay. Okay. Now to get rid of this error here, this entire ZStack that we've been creating, we need to actually make it the return of. We need to put it inside a return group. Okay. And you know, this is just another piece, to be honest with you, I don't fully understand. I haven't gotten the best grasp so far this right here, to be honest. But this is another piece I kind of got a hint from that GitHub file. So now that I've gotten that far, let's go ahead and check out what's next. So I'll open that ZStack back up, and we need to add this piece right here, the offset. So I'm going to put that on the ZStack. Let's look at that. So for offset, I said that the offset in the y dimension depends on whether or not we have this is shown is true or false. So if shown is false, then the offset is 400, or if it's modal height, which in this case is 400. What that means is the whole thing is 400 pixels tall, but since I'm not showing it, I'm actually shoving the whole thing 400 pixels down. So technically, the modal is when I click right here, boom, that modal is still here, but it's down here. It's not actually visible, but it doesn't mean, but it's still present technically. Okay. So it's saying that if it's false, that's what that does. Now what we're saying is, on the other hand, if it's true, I put as the argument for what to do when it's true, I put another ternary operator as that. And that's what this is right here. So I'm saying if it is shown, then I need to check if I'm dragging. And if I am dragging, and if my dragging is greater than 1, because as I'm dragging down it gets bigger, then what it needs to do is it needs to offset as far as I've dragged down. So either I'm not showing this modal at all and I've offset the entire thing, or I'm dragging it and I'm currently on my way is dragging. I'm on my way dragging it down. And if that's true, then I only need to offset it the amount that I've dragged down. Okay? Because if it is shown but I'm not dragging it, or if I am dragging it and I'm dragging it in the wrong direction, then I'm dragging it upwards, I don't want it to go up. I don't want it to get bigger. So I need it to be 0 here. So I'm saying don't offset it at all. Okay? That's what that means. So same thing. I'm going to do the animation, and this time I'm going to add the gesture of drag. So now I have officially added the drag gesture to this half modal, and I've animated this entire process. Okay. The last thing I need to do here, is I just need to take edges ignoring safe area, and I need to put that right here. If I remember correctly, that is right here. Okay. That should be on the ZStack right inside of group. Okay. I'm going to take all that and I'm going to re-indent all of it just to make sure we can really see where everything is. Okay. And there's that. And this clean, quick re-indenting is by clicking Control-I. Okay. So if I save it, I should be able to go back to my content view now. And just to check that everything works, I know this is a long tutorial, but we're pretty much done here. Okay. Inside here, what I'm going to put is I'm going to put a VStack. Actually, I don't even need to. I'm just going to put a, ZStack. Okay. And I'm going to put a button. And actually, I like using buttons from here. It's not on our side. That's okay. To be honest, I'm just going to grab a button from another project. So it's one of those things where if you don't use it too often, you kind of forget it. So button. There we go. I'm just going to take this piece right here. This was where I was trying everything. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to Content View. Inside of my ZStack, I'm going to put my button. And my button now has no action, but it's going to say text show card. All right. And if I open the canvas, I can take a peek at that as it happens. What I need to do is I need to create a state variable. We'll say is half modal shown is equal to false. Okay, where is you? And then what this button will do is it will toggle self.halfButtonShown. It'll toggle it every time you click on it. And then on top of that ZStack, I'm going to put a half modal view. And it's going to be bound by half modal shown. And inside, I'm just going to put a text that says hello world. Okay? Oh, sorry, text. There we go. Try that again. Right, is not happy. And I couldn't tell you why, so I'm gonna run it like this. I'm actually running it in a simulator. Okay. This is being finicky. So let's look. Show card. Hello world. Fully functional. I can click here. It's exactly what we're trying to make. Okay. So once more, big shout out to M. Schaefer for this entire thing, because it was definitely what gave me a head start. It showed me a lot of things that I didn't understand. So that's how we create a half modal. And the last thing I just want to show you actually is just this. I can actually change the modal height. Say I make it 600. Okay. We can run it again. And what we will see is the same modal, but taller. Okay. So that's that. All right. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.